item number 7.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Might get it back in the video.
yeah, yeah.
I show live. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Town of Landis board meeting. We want to thank everyone who is viewing, whether you are here in person or on our live YouTube feed. At this time, I will ask everyone to please stand. We will have a moment of silence and then our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this time, we will move to adopt the agenda.
Mayor and Board, I move we adopt tonight's agenda.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We will move to number 5, citizen comments.
Ms. Nadine Cherry.
Nadine Cherry, 410 West Garden Street. If I remember correctly, were we not told that when we went to the Public Safety Department, all persons applying for a job, whether it be for the police or fire department, had to be cross-trained? I would like to know if this statement is correct or not. In looking over some of the materials I have received this past Friday, the police department wants another officer, and we apparently have an officer out, and it is not known if she will return to work. Another officer means there will be a need for another vehicle. As far as the Passive Park Committee is concerned, yes, I request to be put on the list for consideration, but I see that I was not chosen. I also see that this evening another persons will be chosen to be nominated for the planning board. It seems like nobody really wants to serve. For instance, last month's planning board meeting had to be canceled due to a lack of a quorum. Last, I would like to speak about my utility bill for this month. There was a discrepancy in the billing for this month. I was not billed for all of the electricity I used. It has been taken care of, and I hope it never happens again. About 9 months after I received the new electrical meter, and I believe it was 2016, I noticed it was showing an E6000 reading. I took pictures of the E6000 reading for years. To make a long story short, I would urge everyone to monitor your meter to see if you may also have an E6 reading showing up, or E6000. This reading means the remote disconnect switch was in the wrong position. Yes, on August the 12th, I received a new electrical meter due to the fact that Public Works could not repair it. Only Census, who made the meter, could fix it. Ask questions if you don't understand something. Thank you.
Gary Martin.
Hi. I live at 301 South Central Avenue in Landis. I noticed the last I'd say last week maybe, that when we turn the water on, it's milky mud, red mud, and late in the evenings, you can't stand to sit outside because you can't. The smell just absolutely will knock you out. It's a sewage somewhere, and I've seen somebody post that it's over on South Zion Street, and that way they're having the same issues. Can we please get somebody to flush? They did come. Now I have to give credit. They did come by, and they turned the water on. Maybe 2 minutes, if that. But they didn't flush it out. They just turned it on, and it runs from second check, and it was clay, muddy. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all we have for public comments.
All right. At this time, we will adopt the minutes from the previous meeting
Mayor, I
on
move we
August the
adopt the
9th.
meeting minutes from August 9th.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Any changes? All right, motion passed. Oh, well, hold on, let me vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We will move to number 7.
Mayor and Board, we are going to have Mr. Flo present number 7.
Thank you all. If you recall at your last meeting, there was some discussion about a zoning map amendment. That's a rezoning. That for the Brook Ministries property, there was some discussion about whether to rezone one or both of the properties. There was also some discussion about some options and some concerns about some of those options. At that time, you tabled your action, which brings it back up this month for consideration. And I have confirmed with the applicant that they have recombined the property, so it is now just one property. There's not a separate residential property or anything of that nature. And I don't know if you're going to want the resident to, the applicant to speak to that issue or not, but he's here tonight. And so I guess my final note to you would be you have 2 versions of an ordinance to amend the zoning map. Version references attachments A and B and would rezone both parcels. The other version references attachment B and would only rezone one parcel. If they have in fact been recombined, then you would want to consider the one that addresses both parcels in the description. Okay? So any questions for me? All right, and the applicant is here.
Okay. Is there any discussion or any questions for Mr. Flo? Would y'all like to openly decide which one you vote on, or would you like to vote on them separately?
I would say
B.
where it combines both of the properties.
B. So that would be the second one, ordinance number ZMA-2.
They both have the same ordinance
Oh, okay.
number, Mayor. They're just 2 versions of the same
Okay.
one. And it would be the second one that references both
and
A
B.
and B is correct.
Okay.
And it has 2 attachments, attachment A and attachment B. Okay?
Thank you.
Mayor and Board, I move that we amend the official zoning map to reflect the Brook Ministries Incorporated requested changes via ordinance number ZMA 2021-08-09-2.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Flo will also present item number 8, contiguous voluntary annexation request by Haskell's at 109 East 31st Street.
Good evening, everybody. It's been a while since I've been up here. What we have in front of you is a request for an annexation of property located at the very end of East 31st. There's a exhibit there in the map on the first page of the memo. I've decided to move those maps up to the front of the memo instead of on the back. And it's the one that's outlined in blue. And that's what they're wanting to annex into the town limits. And so before, you'll recall it takes two meetings of the governing board. At the first meeting, there are several things that can be done, and those are listed on your agenda, those 4 items. And the second meeting, we would actually have the hearing and consider the annexation ordinance, which would be the ordinance to extend the city limits, okay? And then at that second meeting, you would also consider an ordinance that would apply the initial town zoning to the property. Right now, it's not in the town limits, so it doesn't have town zoning. So I'm going to kind of hold your hand a little bit, if you don't mind, through a couple of actions. So you have the petition in your possession there, and that's really the first part there, is to receive the petition. The second item is to consider a resolution that would direct the clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition. So that's an item that would require consideration and a vote by the board. That starts the process.
All right. Have a motion?
Mayor and Board, I move that we consider the resolution for directing clerk to investigate an annexation petition.
I second that.
Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor? Thank you.
You have in your agenda package a copy of the clerk's certification. Of course, the clerk has, for the record, a executed copy. We have verified that the people that signed the petition are authorized. It's a corporation that has purchased the property. You see the deed in there as an exhibit, but we've also received from them their information that demonstrates that the two people that signed the petition are also the managing members of their LLC. And so we want to make sure that they have the authority to make that request. So with that recommendation, I had recommended to the clerk that we could certify that petition. So, Madam Clerk, do you have a certification? Yeah, there's an unsigned one in our folders. Right, so she has that on the record. And with that now in possession, you can move on to the very next step, which is the second resolution, 2021-09-2, which would call for a public hearing at your next regular meeting in October on the question of annexation. Now, just for your information, we will also likely advertise that hearing to do a zoning map amendment so that we can apply the initial zoning too. But we don't have a recommendation on that because that goes to the planning board, which meets tomorrow night. So we're shortening this process up. 2 meetings by you and 1 meeting of the planning board to get it all done. Okay? Everything clear as mud?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So there's another resolution for you.
All right.
Mayor and Board, I move we adopt the resolution number 2021-092.
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Don't leave, Mr. Flo. You are still up for number 9 to discuss approval of the Town of Landis policy for managing utility allocations and extensions.
So good to see y'all again so soon. Most communities have some type of standard or policy for the expansion or extension of their system. Typically, the expansion or extension of a utility, and we're speaking only of water and sewer, not of your electric utility, okay, just of water and sewer. Typically, those extensions are compelled by new development projects. Someone wants to build a new subdivision or something like that, and they will need to extend water and sewer throughout that new neighborhood. So that is an extension of what you have, which is a public system. The draft that's before you right now is a very practical draft, and it accomplishes several things. But I want to give you just a little bit more background. Following some problems down in Union County back in the 1990s, the state of North Carolina started requiring local governments to track the allocation of their capacity. Not just what you actually have going through the lines, the water lines or the sewer system, but what you have committed to. So an allocation letter for a new developer to build, let's say, a project with 10 new homes or something like that, would obligate you to provide and reserve that capacity in your system. Whether they're using it or not, it goes against your available capacity. Does that make sense? And so it only makes sense then to have a policy in place for the conditions that would apply to making such allocations, and most importantly, what happens if they don't use it. And I call that the clawback provision. And I'll give you an example. In another municipality in a nearby county, there had been a townhome project and a subdivision, both approved on the same piece of property over a period of about 10 years, and both times allocation letters were issued, and the tracking system for the wastewater treatment and the water treatment facilities still showed both allocations out there, yet no development had actually occurred. And what it triggered was the expansion of a packaged wastewater treatment facility, because those numbers made it look like there was something going on, there was some demand and what have you. So it's very important that we have a clear policy that if a developer gets a letter from us, a commitment, say for 100,000 gallons per day of sewer for a bunch of houses, and they don't build as many houses, or they don't go forward with all of the project, or they get the letter and then end up not closing on the land, that we have the ability to pull that back in. So this policy spells that process out as well. Now, a third major aspect of the policy is that it basically would set in play a policy on your behalf for any extension of the system to require annexation if it's to serve properties outside the town limits. Now, this is not to say that you couldn't tie on a house that's outside the town limits that's had an emergency with a well or something like that, where the line's already there and it's a small, very small situation. But anything that would require expansion of the system, like to serve another 100 houses, that would require them to go ahead and be annexed into the town, so you don't have a whole bunch of out-of-town customers, impacting the capacities and the allocations that you have available, okay? It basically would require them to become, or require that new subdivision to become a component of the town of Landis, okay? So that's kind of a summary of what those 10 or 12 or 14 pages actually say. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to help you with them. I hope everybody's had a chance to take a look through there. But it would cover both your water and your sewer. Okay?
Are there any questions at this time? Mr. Stewart.
Mayor and Board, I move that we approve or consider approving the policy for managing utility allocations and extensions.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my item so far.
Thank you. Okay.
Go ahead.
Number 10, consider approval of a new police officer position. So in your package, you received the request that I received from Dr. Laschetti, requesting that we add a new Landis police officer. I would like to reiterate the need for an additional police officer as requested by Dr. Laschetti. You can certainly read the passionate and thorough explanation of the need for this position in the memo to me requesting the additional position. I would like to spend a few minutes summarizing that need and offering a way to fund it. The position allows us to cover and prepare for existing and potential vacancies in the department. We are currently down one position due to an injury and have one person that has not been released from training yet. In addition, the loss of an additional employee for a different opportunity is likely. Hiring and training are long and involved. If this position is approved and posted tonight, it will likely be December before an offer can be made. The process for vetting potential candidates is much longer for law enforcement than a typical town position. With hiring likely to happen in December, depending on the background, it could be an additional 3 months before the employee is ready to be on the road doing patrol. While the number of positions is down, the number of citizens and calls have significantly increased over the past years. Dr. Lischetti points out on page 3 of his request that prior to layoffs in 2016, the department had 12 full-time positions and responded to 3,847 calls in 2015. In 2020, the call volume had increased to 13,975 calls. From a funding perspective, Dr. Lischetti originally asked for 2 officers in this budget. At the time of the request, I could not find a way to fund those positions. That does not mean I do not believe they are warranted. Quite to the contrary, I fully support his request for 1 additional officer. Fortunately, we now have a way to fund this position. This is primarily due to the position starting well into the fiscal year, the salary avoidance for the officer out on injury, and a replacement officer with less experience than our previous employee. I propose that we see how the budget goes for the next 6 months and then determine if a budget amendment is needed. If one is required, I'll have a small amount of unexpected revenue that can be used. You do need to consider that the position will require full funding next year. I think that will be possible by a likely increase in tax revenue generated by new building in the town. That is not to suggest a tax increase, but just that our levy would be increasing because we have new growth. Thank you for your consideration of this request. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them, or Dr. Lischetti and Assistant Director Mr. Young are here tonight.
Yeah, discussion.
I think the town needs it. It's very disheartening when you have an officer out here working the night shift by themselves. Knock on wood, nothing has happened in this town, but it's a matter of time. It's not when. It's not if, it's when.
Anybody else?
I have a few questions, if you don't mind. Will the goal in searching for this applicant, for this position that you're asking for, requesting, are you specifically scouting for dual certified ones to serve in the public safety, as a public safety officer? Or are we that tight that we'll take if somebody's police certified only?
I do think that it would be ideal to find a candidate that's certified in both. I think that we are in a current market where that is highly unlikely. It is difficult enough to find a police officer. I'll let Dr. Lischetti speak to that, but I will say that we only had 2 applicants for the position that we just filled, and that was just for police officer certification.
Exactly. So to piggyback on that, as you can realize, we're in between 2 major metropolitan areas with Kannapolis and Salisbury. So everyone is fighting for the same small group of people. So if you increase that recruitment standard to require both dual certification, I feel like our applicant pool gets smaller. So this position, being that it is such a need and we need to expedite this hiring as quick as possible, my intention is to advertise it as a police officer position. And to kind of piggyback on some comments previously, it is currently a voluntary process to become a public safety officer. Not everybody is expected to do that process. It is voluntary. So we would extend that same opportunity to a person who we hire. If they want to become a public safety officer, we would surely consider that in our interview process and our hiring, but that is a thing that is currently voluntary. Another thing I'd like to add is we did have a firefighter who was going to be going to BLET. Unfortunately, as you're well aware, we had COVID hit our fire department. We still have 2 full-time employees who are out on the fire department side who are unable to work their regular duties. So we've had to pull that firefighter out of BLET to resume his full-time functions on the fire department. Therefore, that person we were going to have as a public safety officer potentially by the end of the year has now been pushed back to even starting BLET until February. So we're looking at this time next year before we have that particular person able to be a public safety officer if they can get into BLET in February. Another thing I'd like to point out is while we are currently authorized a strength of 11, if you give us another position this evening, giving us a strength of 12, if we hire that 12th person, we'll still be operating with 11. And that reason is because we don't know when the employee who is injured will return or if they will return at all. So we are still operating at a bare minimum staff if we hire somebody. And like I forecasted to the town manager, I wanted to get ahead of it rather than behind it, because if we do have an employee who is seeking a new opportunity, which I'm aware that they are, that would drop us to 10. And surely we don't like employees working by themselves. It's a safety issue. We want to make sure that we have our staffing up there to ensure that all calls are being handled for the public. And I'll be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
I'm not anti-police or anti-fire, but I don't want us to get into a position like we were some years ago. There'd be 4 or 5 people sitting around in the office, and we're still talking about needing patrol officers. I think there could be some dual purposes maybe with the people that's on the staff now. I'd like to see more utilization of the people we have.
Yes, sir. And to answer your question or to respond to that point, of our staff, 2 are administrators. One is myself, one is Assistant Director Young. As you're well aware, we have dual roles in the fire and police departments. That takes our time away from being able to solely focus on one. So if we are covering a patrol shift, which we have, and we're more than happy to do, that takes us away from the fire department, because we've got to be in town, in the city limits, to respond to calls 24 hours a day if we're on duty. That does not take into account the fact that we have 2 other positions that are SROs that we can't unfortunately allocate to any other purpose. And right now, with the 5 that we have working on patrol, that leaves 1 for day shift, 1 for night shift, and the 1 floater as a sergeant in between while that other person is out. So I would say to your point that we made it very clear that employees are to be out there, be proactive in the community, be seen, doing business checks. I do not see employees in the office, and we'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Outside of the approximated deficit of hiring this new employee, which you've approximated to be $13,000 in salary, not including their benefits, what other costs to onboard and get another police officer on the street? Do you have a vehicle in place? Do you have weapons in place, radios, et cetera?
Yes, exactly. So the deficit is going to be the salary and the benefits. We do have vehicles. Luckily, we are not hurting in that area at the moment, so we can outfit them with a marked vehicle. That's not going to be an issue. We do have enough weapons that are going to be issued. We have a body camera. We have a taser. We have array of spare uniforms, but I do imagine what to buy, potentially some uniform items and potentially a bulletproof vest. We want to make sure that those are in date and measured for our particular employee. So outside of probably just some uniform items, all of our major, what we consider cost factors are allocated for.
If the employee that is on a leave right now comes back and is able to go back on duty, will you still have cars, all of that still available?
Yes. So currently we have enough for our current staff. That includes a spare marked vehicle that is a true spare car, and we have a unmarked vehicle which could be converted to another detective sergeant vehicle to free up another marked vehicle. So when that employee hopefully does come back, there'd still be enough marked vehicles for the new hire.
Guesstimate, what's the bulletproof vest cost? Just
So we have put some money aside this year for grant money for vests. We've put $5,000 aside for that. And there is matching funds for grants from the League of Municipalities and a federal grant. But long story short, we could offset our costs, but average cost about $1,100.
okay,
But we are
right.
budgeted for some of that grant money already, which we could use to outfit the new employee.
Mr. Evercash, do you have any questions?
No, the only thing is we've already heard tonight, when you start talking about hiring police officers and firefighters and start buying cars and building buildings, reading on here, I didn't know that the school resource officers are not available for patrols. but yet they drive a fully equipped
So
vehicle.
to hit on your point,
Now, I'm not saying take that vehicle away from them. I don't want to make Buddy Porter mad. But could that vehicle become a patrol car, and let's get him something that's,
so we have the ability to move our fleet around as we deem necessary. They do have, both our SROs do have nice vehicles, and that's something that we have a luxury of. Our staff here have very nice vehicles. So I don't see the need to move those around. Our positions are 100% funded at the middle school. That is 100% salary and equipment that is budgeted for, that we do not pay for. That is basically a free position the state and school board give us. Our high school position is 66.66% funded by the school board. So we actually only pay that 33 1/3 difference in salary. So we cannot take anything from them because that is allocated in their position per our contract that we sign every year. We do have some leeway in that we can move some things around, but the fact of the matter is they have a vehicle and we have a spare vehicle that we could use.
How long are we required to keep that car at the school that we furnish? Do we furnish the car?
So we supply the employee and we supply the equipment, and that, of course, is paid for either in full or in part by the school board.
I was told it didn't have to be 2 years, now we can do whatever we want to do with it.
So that I'm not aware of. I do know we've signed our contract for this year, and that is for this school year.
When the school's not in session, you use those employees, those two SROs.
That is correct. This past summer was a little bit different
Right.
because we had some summer school going on and we had some like lunches being dispersed and stuff. So, and typically in the summertime, we try to allow our SROs to take vacation because they've been in school all year, like teachers, so they really can't take vacation during the year. And also, they have their SRO conference in the summer. So we do lose them for a little bit of time, but overall, we can get them in the summertime to help with call volume. And I would hit on call volume real quick. So I've only been here obviously for 9 months, so I really can't speak on 2015 to 2020 even, because I came at the end of 2020. But I think it's common sense to know that our call volume has increased. When pulling these figures for you for tonight, looking back at say 3,000 in 2015 and 13,000 last year, some of that might be due to the way we report our calls for service, in that here previously we report our proactive calls. So anytime an officer does a business check or does anything that's self-initiated, that is also in that total that would have been last year. Now, I do say probably without any doubt that the regular calls in the 911 have increased, but so has the way those call reports have been generated, including that self-reported stuff. So that could play a little bit of a factor in that, but I do believe we're still answering more calls with the less employees we had in 2016.
Do you know how much money we're paying for overtime?
On an aggregate basis since the employee left on workers' comp. So March, has overtime increased?
Overtime has increased, I think I can say with confidence, slightly. I will say a lot of what we're having on the coverage, we've had Dr. Lachetti and Officer or Assistant Chief Young cover a number of those different shifts for us, and we haven't been able to allow our folks to take vacation or to attend training. And that's really where we start to see the morale issues, is folks feeling like they can't get a break. And we just can't give that right now and still have coverage. So that while the overtime has increased, it might not be as much as you would think it would be because of the extra effort that we've received from our two administrators and from the fact that we just aren't allowing anyone to take time off.
Well, and I will say, if I may, our part-time salaries
Yes.
have increased substantially. We do have 3 part-time employees. They do work as much as they can. Unfortunately, one works full-time elsewhere, so therefore we get him when he's available. The other 2 are retired, so they give us their time when they feel like it, which I totally respect. But our part-time salaries have increased more so than the part-time, or I'm sorry, more so than the overtime, due to the reasons that the town manager spoke of. And I think it would continue to go down that trajectory as time goes on, especially if we lose that other employee.
Well, and part of the concern with our part-time employees, and we are very appreciative of their willingness to serve, but I feel like we're taxing them a little bit and requesting maybe more than they would traditionally give as being retired. They enjoy that retirement lifestyle, and we certainly don't want to take advantage of that, but I feel like we have been pushing that to the max for the last month or so.
Well, and the last thing I'd like to add is outside of covering patrol shifts, we're to the point now where we can't, on a regular and consistent basis, guarantee that we'll be able to find people to do our other security jobs at the athletic games. People are burnt out. They don't want to be working any more than they already are at these off-duty type of events. And, Landis Elementary School does not have an SRO, so that is an off-duty officer who is paid to work there. And we have had to maneuver some folks, with Kevin and myself covering the road, to take a patrol officer off patrol while we work patrol, to send that patrol officer to Landis Elementary to work on the school system's time to cover that. And my fear is that we've missed several days of doing that, and if we continue that trend, we'll lose coverage at Landis Elementary. And they'll probably turn that over to the county to be their own security at some point. We just can't maintain that any longer. And so I'll have the sheriff's office doing security at Landis Elementary.
I'd like to see us get more help from the county. I don't feel like we get any.
Well, I can speak to the contrary, especially at night shift when our officers are working by themselves. They are our backbone.
Well, they back up. I'm just talking about.
Well, we have the primary responsibility in the town, but
like
they.
Mount Pleasant's furnished 2 deputies by the Cabarrus County.
Right, but since we have our own in-town municipality, we take the primary role on that.
Harrisburg's got about 3 or 4 furnished by the county. County taxes pays for it.
Well, I know that they are always available when we call them,
Yeah, I didn't
and
say they weren't available. Didn't respond from mutual aid. I'm just saying, I think the county ought to furnish us a couple of deputies for our county tax money we pay.
Any more questions? Okay.
Mayor and Board, I move we consider approval for the new position, or for a position for the new police officer.
I second that.
I'll go around. Mr. Evercash?
I'll go for it. Yeah.
Mr. Coyer?
I'm not gonna be the lone wolf. I'll go for it.
Ms. Sales?
I vote for it.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll move to number 11.
I would just like to say thank you for that. I know it will go a long ways to alleviating some of the stress at the police department. Thank you. Number 11 is an easy one, but we have not yet adopted a meeting schedule for the board, and I thought it would also be beneficial. We will post this, if it's okay with you, tomorrow on our website, the utility billing information, when we'll be closed for holidays, that type thing, when cutoffs will happen, just general billing information. And then the first schedule is for your board meetings, and they are all on the second
Tuesday.
Monday of the month.
Mondays.
Yeah.
Someone told me today. I thought it was on Tuesdays. I was like, is it? And I was like, no, it's today. Tuesday's planning board.
I thought this would give you an opportunity to just check your schedules and make sure we don't have anything that we need to alter as of now.
There was one. I think it was March 14th. I think it fell like at Easter or something, maybe. Easter week. Maybe not. No, Easter is the 10th. So we would have one on the 11th. Normally that's Easter Monday.
It is Easter Monday. We, as a town, are closed on Good Friday.
Just Good Friday.
Yes, ma'am. But it's up to you. If we want to move that, we can. It's just, we are open for business that day.
Material me.
I don't know how that coincides with the school calendar.
They're out of school.
I say just leave it. I mean,
Okay.
You said March 14th?
No, April 11th.
April
is
11th,
Easter
yeah.
Monday. I mean, is that considered a federal holiday, or because Good Friday's not anymore. I mean, banks and stuff are open.
Easter's a religious study.
Just Easter?
I said it wouldn't be.
Okay. Okay, then we'll leave it. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion we adopt it as written.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Number 12, consider approving a domain registration to .gov. Please consider approving a domain change from .com to .gov. This change will make it easier for anyone searching the internet to find us because we will be identified as a government. In addition, it reduces the risk for our customers to be phished or routed to a foreign website. There is not a cost for this change. The domain change will mean that all of our email addresses will change from an ending of .com to .gov. This process will take a little time, but should be completed before calendar year end. The other good news is VC3 is going to program our current emails so that they automatically forward to the new address. This will eliminate the risk of lost emails and missed information. It should be a smooth and easy transition.
Any questions?
Mayor and Board, I move that we consider approving the domain registration to .gov.
Second.
Second that.
No discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Number 13, consider authorization for the town manager to sign a change in terms document for F&M Bank. So there's information in here for you on what we owe for this loan. This is the loan that housed the police cars and a number of other items. Left on there is a sewer truck. And because we paid off the other items, we went to F&M Bank and asked if they would re-amortize the loan, not over an additional amount of time, but we didn't feel like we needed to keep making the same payments that we were making for all of the equipment when we were down now to just one. They have agreed to do that. They do not have the paperwork finished, but it probably will be finished, and we have a payment due before your next meeting. So I'm just requesting authorization to sign those documents on behalf of the town.
I have a motion.
Mayor and Board, I move that we consider giving the town manager authorization to sign change in terms document for F&M.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Item number 14 is the Town of Landis alcohol and substance abuse policy. This is the much-awaited policy that Amber Levi, our Human Resources Officer, has been working diligently on. She will speak to that for you and answer any questions. I will say it was much more involved than we anticipated because we fall under a federal law with specific requirements to this because we are receiving the the ARP money. And so that when you receive federal money, it puts you in a position to have additional requirements from a federal perspective. So Amber has included those, and it has been vetted by Mr. Locklear and by the the North Carolina League of Municipalities, I think, has reviewed it.
They have not yet.
They have not yet, okay. But it is similar to a number of our other local municipalities, and we feel confident that it is good from a legal perspective. I'll let you speak to that, Ms. Levi.
Okay. First, I would just like to tell you a little bit about the reason it took so long to bring this together. The Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution does not allow us to just randomly drug screen anybody because it prohibits the government from performing unreasonable searches. A drug test is considered a search. So that's one of the reasons that I just couldn't go, hey, we're going to randomly drug screen everybody. Therefore, there must be special circumstances to allow us to drug screen employees. Those reasons, as listed in the alcohol and substance abuse policy, is in front of you. As you can see, pre-employment, safety-sensitive, post-accident, reasonable suspicion, transfer to safety-sensitive positions, and DOT-regulated employees are all part of the drug screening process. Safety-sensitive positions are defined as positions with duties that involve such a significant risk of injury to others that Even a moment of lapse of attention can be disastrous consequences. These positions are defined by the HR officer based on duties and responsibilities. Those currently defined as safety sensitive are law enforcement, fire personnel, public safety officers, employees working with hazardous chemicals, employees working with heavy equipment, and employees working within water, sewer, stormwater, electric, and DOT regulated employees. During my research, it was brought to my attention that at some point we may be receiving federal grants, and because of this, we are to adhere to the Drug-Free Workplace of 1988. This act requires anyone receiving federal funding to prepare and distribute a formal drug-free workplace policy, establish a drug-free awareness program, establish responsibilities of employees, for example, notifying when a criminal drug violation has happened so the employer may report it, take action against an employee who has been convicted of a drug violation, and maintain a good faith effort to meet all the requirements of the Drug-Free Workplace Act. Along with the policy, you will see that I've contracted with McLaughlin Young Group to provide employee assistance. We currently have like a small employee assistance program through our insurance company, health insurance company, but if we change insurance providers, that employee assistance program changes every year if we were to change. So with the McLaughlin Group, we have a consistent employee assistance program for our employees. This not only will allow employees a program to seek assistance with alcohol and drug abuse, but they may also be able to be used for employees that seek other types of assistance for counseling. As the HR officer, it is my responsibility to provide information to those employees seeking help for substance abuse. I will also be responsible for the training associated with this policy. One thing to note, the policy sets out a provision for employees that seek help prior to being chosen for random screening. An employee may seek help from the HR officer prior to being chosen for a random drug screening, and I will assist them by getting them the information needed for counseling, rehabilitation, and the employee assistance program. It is up to the employee to actually make the appointments and pay the costs associated with the assistance. With the implementation of random drug screenings, we have contracted with an agency who completes our background checks, that is Castle Branch, to complete the random drawings for the drug screenings. These will be completed quarterly. Castle Branch will reach out to me each quarter with the list of employees who should report to the drug screenings. Those employees will be notified and must promptly report for the screening. LabCorp will be our testing site, as they are DOT certified to conduct those screenings. So there's special circumstances for the DOT, so they have to be certified. This policy was constructed with the help of the North Carolina League of Municipalities and other surrounding municipality policies. It is my recommendation that you approve the proposed alcohol and substance abuse policy and set the start date 30 days from today. This will allow me time to train supervisors, disperse the information to the employees, and answer any questions they may have.
All right, at this time, do we have any questions?
I think you've done a great job on it.
Thank you.
I flipped through and read through it.
Thank you.
Done good.
I appreciate it. It looks very nice. Thank you.
I have one question. When we look at number 9, where it says the disciplinary action for non-compliance, number 1, where it says employees who receive a positive drug or alcohol test result will be dismissed.
It is a no tolerance policy, and that is consistent with other municipalities.
Now, I also, when we think about this policy, a couple of things. Your personnel ordinance, how does it mesh, or how does this provision, or saying you're immediately dismissed, how does that line up with your personnel ordinance?
Our current personnel policy,
No, the ordinance, personnel ordinance.
We don't have a personnel ordinance, we have a policy.
It's a policy?
is a
Yes.
policy.
Yeah, we voted on that back in,
It's been a while.
oh, yeah.
I would say it was at near the beginning.
It was
of-
January of 2019. I would say that it was around the 17th or 18th.
And this policy would replace what's inside the personnel policy because it is 3 sentences long.
Another question, when I was listening to vaccination requirements, and, you know, this is, I think, something we probably need to think about, because one of the reasons that I'm hearing the need for this policy that's before you tonight is the receipt of federal funding. And I don't know that we have clarity yet about, when you receive federal funding for different types of programs and grants, the requirements that will be imposed upon us. I just thought this policy, the adoption of the policy, is a good time to begin thinking forward. If that's coming down the track, what's going to be our position there? I'm not asking for any
Right.
comments or anything.
I
just
know.
putting it out there.
I mean, it's coming down the pipeline everywhere you look. So this does coincide with the policy about immediate dismissal.
As far as,
If they were like number 9, like you said.
yes,
Okay.
if they were to test positive, yes.
Okay.
And the only time that someone could seek the assistance is not after they've tested positive.
Correct.
Is if they come to us prior and say, I need help, then it would be.
Within the next 30 days, if we vote that. Yeah.
At any time before they are randomly selected, they could come to me and request help. And that would not count as,
Okay.
a positive for them. As
Okay.
long as they seek help prior to being randomly selected.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Any other concerns? All right. At this time, do I have a motion?
Mayor and Board, I move that we consider adopting the Town of Landis alcohol and substance abuse policy.
A second.
Any discussion? I'll go around. Mr. Evercash,
I'm for it.
Ms. Sales,
I'm for it.
Mr. Coyer,
For it.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Thank
Do
you.
have one thing. Amber, how would they choose who random? I
It
know
is
at our
computer generated.
Computer generated. okay.
Yes, I have to provide a list to Castle Branch of all of our safety-sensitive positions that we have and those employees that fill those positions. And then I also provide them with a DOT-regulated employee list. So if they are on the DOT-regulated list, I do not put them on the safety-sensitive list, so they don't have the chance to be drawn twice. So they're on either one. So those DOT-regulated would be any of our commercial driver's license folks. So they'll be on the DOT, and then everybody else will be on the safety-sensitive list. And then Castle Branch will put that into their system, and it will do this algorithm, and it will pull the names randomly, and then they'll contact me, and I'll contact the employee.
And they have, within how long did you say?
They're to report immediately. If they are working, then they are to leave right then, as soon as I notify them to go to LabCorp.
Okay. If they're out, I'm just thinking like,
If they're out, it'll be the next day that they work.
okay. All right.
Question?
Motion passed.
Number 15 is also for Ms. Levi. We have a recommended change to how we are doing our performance review cycle.
Okay.
As you may recall, in June, we spoke about the need for a performance review system for the town of Landis employees. This is something that they've never had. They don't know how they're doing. They don't know where they stand. And you voted to start a performance review system for our town employees with a merit system as well. It is important for the town employees to know how their performance is viewed by their supervisors and what areas they may need improvement. It is also important to reward employees for their dedication and performance. These types of programs increase morale, decrease turnover, and save the town time and money with recruitment and new hires. In July, with the passing of the 2021-2022 budget, you approved a merit increase program to coincide with the performance review system. I stated that I would like for the reviews to take place each year in October. After further consideration, I recommend we move to an annual review cycle to spread costs and workload on supervisors. To start the program, we are recommending reviews for all employees with at least 1 year of service to be completed this October. Employees with less than 1 year of service will be reviewed on their anniversary date. Beginning with the next fiscal year, all employees will be reviewed on their anniversary date. Just wanted to get your approval on that because originally we were going to do everybody in October, and now we kind of want to spread it out.
It also ensures that those new employees get a review on their annual date. Right now, most of them get a review on their probation at 6 months. But if we did not give merits to folks who hadn't been here a year and we did all of them in October, then it would not provide a time to do those reviews for those folks who are new. This doesn't require that you always do a merit. You could choose not to do a merit one year, but it would allow us to continue to do, regardless of the merit situation, your reviews once a year on your annual date.
All right, are there any questions? Do I have a motion?
Mayor Board, I move that we consider the Town of Landis performance review cycle.
I
Second.
second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Can we table 17?
Sure.
Do I have a motion to table number 17?
Make a motion.
What about
to table
16?
Oh, wait.
What about
I meant 16.
16.
16.
Sale.
Sorry, it's on my tab for 17. We're going to table 16. Do I have a motion?
I made a motion.
Oh, do I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Number 17 is consider recommendation for the Passive Park Blue Ribbon Committee. The mayor and the board approved the appointment of 2 staff members and 2 board members at their August meeting. I know that we are all excited about moving forward with planning for Passive Park. To facilitate eliminating a delay in the process, I have randomly selected from the pool of applicants the following 6 citizens. And when I say randomly, I mean literally we wrote them on pieces of paper, put them in a bag, and drew them out. And I had Ms. Levi present to make sure that everyone was included and that there was no discrepancy in who was picked. The 6 citizens that were picked were Ben, I don't know how to say his last name. If someone can help me, that would be great.
Smagacz.
Shelley Morgan, Megan Cleveland, Shasta Deese, Pamela Urban, and John Hall. The remainder of the committee will be comprised of Mayor Smith, Alderwoman Sells, Jessica Stamper, and a to-be-named staff member. I also want to reiterate that just because you were not selected to be on the official committee does not mean that there's not an opportunity for you to participate. I would encourage all of those who have either an interest or applied and were not selected to stay aware of what we're doing with that committee. There will be lots of opportunity and a need for a lot of volunteers, and I would encourage you to participate on things that interest you.
Mayor, I can make a motion, we consider the Passive Park Blue Ribbon Committee members as written.
Do I have a second? We don't. We would need to set the next meeting so that the public, whoever,
There won't be 3 board members.
right, but I'm just not necessarily saying we need a vote on it. I'm just saying, do you want to decide when we're going to meet, or do you want to wait?
We're gonna wait.
Okay.
I have one comment beforehand. Were any of these names that were randomly selected names that were submitted after the deadline?
No, sir. They were all on your list from last month that Ms. Levi provided to you.
No, I understand that, but I know that
But they weren't-
that
they-
deadline ended on Thursday of the week prior to that meeting, and I know names came in at least on Monday I'm aware of. I'm
They had till
aware
when?
at least one name that came in on Monday late.
They had until Friday to submit that, and I don't recall anybody submitting on Monday, unless it came in to my email, Friday night, but it was Friday night when we had the cutoff date.
Do I have a second?
Wait, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I have a motion from Mr. Overcash.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
No.
Any against?
I'm against.
No,
You're against it, or you're,
against it. No.
okay, then
Against.
we have a tie.
So, Mayor, that means you get to vote.
Oh, look at there. Okay, we're going to go by and we're going to call them by name so that I have this down, and so does Miss Levi, who's back here shaking her head, going, "I don't know what happened." Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Overcash to accept the consider the passive part Blue Ribbon Committee members as stated, and I have a vote from Mr. Overcash as
Yes, I made the motion, so I'm
okay,
voting for.
and Miss Sales.
I'll vote for it.
Okay, and Mr. Coyer, can you please state that because people can't?
No.
And then I have Mr. Stewart.
No.
Okay. Do either of you have discussion as into your no's or what you would like to see happen? Or you want to table this to where we can discuss it again?
Go ahead.
After calling the vote, I believe the
We
time
have
for
to-
discussion is passed.
Is passed? Okay. I mean, I'm just not really used to this, am I? I just carry on the meeting.
I see.
I think it caught you by surprise.
Just a little. I mean, I wasn't prepared. I mean, we really need to move on with this committee. I mean, can I ask a question, or that's not, I can't do that either, since I'm not normally a voter.
Yay or nay?
That's your question.
Nay. And so the motion does not pass. We will move to number 18.
Number 8, consider the report. So you have a report as of 31st. I hope to have for you, we are anxiously awaiting we have closed our books and we are awaiting final approval from our auditors for those year-end numbers. So hopefully I will have a June 30th update for you next month. But you have an update for each, or you have the detail for each fund, and then you also have a cash position statement at the end of those. I think you'll see that we are progressing nicely on all of our revenues, and that we might look a little heavy on some of our expenses, but that is because we are being fairly aggressive with large ticket items, because in today's environment we are having to wait a long time on receipt of a number of those. So I think that a lot of those expenses that seem to be high, if you look at your overall percentage, are primarily driven by the fact that we have put out orders for some of our large ticket items. Are there any questions?
None right now. We just got this prior to the meeting. I may
Yes.
come to you offline with any.
Yeah, I don't have any.
That would be fine. Okay. So,
I do have one question.
Okay.
We are right on Passive Park. We got that one
Yes.
updated.
yes.
And we haven't sold anything since, correct?
No.
Okay.
The $259,569.17 includes all of the land that has been sold since I've been here.
Okay.
So, if there are no other questions, I'll move to number 19, consider the manager's report.
Hold on one. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that was June. Okay, so the date at the top is still as of June 30th.
No.
Okay, what do you want me to change that to?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, I just want to make sure I have the right date.
It should be as of August 31st.
August 31st.
Yes, I apologize. I missed that one.
No, that's fine. I just kind of was looking back at the passive one from August and just wanted to make sure that we had that one because that one's changed.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, so my manager's report. We had a lot on the agenda this evening and are also going into closed session. Therefore, I'm going to attempt to keep this report at a very high level. We have made progress on a number of items that were not on the agenda that are of interest. Here's a brief overview. While we continue to have COVID impact our employees and their families, we currently do not have anyone in the hospital. All employees have either returned to work or are improving. 4 new firemen and a lineman started this month, or actually in August. We have several candidates for the finance position that we will be calling for phone interviews this week. Jessica has been working on bids for new cabins and shelters that were approved in the 2022 budget. We will be adding 2 new cabins and a covered shelter in the quarry area. We had originally hoped to add cabins in the quarry area. Unfortunately, providing electric service to that area is cost prohibitive. This area has always been used as a camping area. The elevated covered shelter will allow for tent rentals off the ground and or for large parties for picnics. We will also be starting the completion of the disc golf course after the leaves fall, as was recommended by the designer of that course.
I have a question. Do we rent tents?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Somebody asked me that and I didn't know the answer.
The playground is on order and should be installed prior to Christmas. I am excited to see the expansion to our Lake Coyer Wilderness Park. The mayor and I have been working with local artist Caswell Turner on a mural to go on the side of the sheriff's department. You will see, and this is really exciting, we have been working really hard. The mayor has had some great input and great ideas. This is really her vision for the mural, and Caswell is not quite finished yet, but is making great progress on what that will look like. We wanted to show this to you because we need to go to the Rowan County Commissioners for their approval at their next meeting because it goes on their building. And we would like to have it installed before the Fall Festival. I think that is fairly aggressive. It's just going to depend on whether the installers have availability to get us on their calendar before then, but we're going to do our very best to make that happen. But I am really excited about the mural, and I want to give the mayor an opportunity to talk about some of the things that you see on here and her vision, how she came up with what's included here.
If you would like to look at your handouts, we have a hummingbird for Mr. D.C. Lynn and his love of hummingbirds. We have cardinals just because we are a small town in North Carolina. You will see that the engine number is 413, which is our American Legion post. We used to have things like Billy Ray Barnes, All-American Pro, on our welcome signs when you would come into town. Since we have updated those, we did take those off. I went with what were stores all around. I went to different people. Mr. Locklear had a lot of information, old calendars, names of old businesses such as Landis Ice and Fuel, Noah's 5 and 10 cent store, Lynn's Brothers, Busy Store, Landis Plumbing Shop, Landis Roller Mill, and the list goes on and on. There is something in each letter. The Dairy Bar, the Police Department, Chuck's Trains, Touch of Glitz, the Water Tower, the old post office, which we recently learned was a doctor's office. Do you remember the name, Katie? Do you remember the name? Okay. There are going to be X amount of number of yellow jackets for Coyer Light, and there will be bees symbolizing the letters of each, the name. There's also over in the trees, it's kind of hard to see right now, but it's a heart. It says SR for South Rowan. we've tried to incorporate as many things to identify what Landis has always been about, and hopefully put that a little bit visionary when you're coming down the tracks. I will tell you that I think the color of the yellow, orange, and red makes it a little bit more yellow, or it's yellow orange to like an orange. It probably more to a red like our logo, from that yellow to red. But other than that, that's where we are.
We're also wanting to recognize Rowan County
Yes.
for their support and for the fact that we are a proud community within Rowan County. So on the train, you will see your Rowan, and that's just a website that hopefully will encourage them to also promote Landis on the Your Rowan website.
They do a lot of promoting of things in the town, so they would promote coming into town, this, Lake Wilderness Park, different things like that. So we hope that this gives us a viewing point for people to come in and take a look at that. Passive Park will be right around the corner from the mural, so when people come in to visit the park, or when we have events on that side of Central, it's kind of a good focal point. Yes, Mr. Flo.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't mean to spring a surprise on Miss Seifert, but she's sitting in front of me and couldn't see me. I just wanted to confirm for the record that the mural proposed and the location of it meets the standards of your Landis Development Ordinance, Section 2.22, which gives, and you have the authority to approve those. Just letting you know.
Okay, thank you.
I think you're going to do it anyway.
Looked like it, didn't it?
We'll look at that.
Yeah, we need to check
Okay.
on that.
Do you have anything
Yeah,
you
it
can
makes
finish?
Oh, it does meet it?
Yeah, it meets
Yeah.
it.
Oh, you're
Oh,
saying
okay.
it does. I thought you
It
said
says
look
that.
into it. Oh.
Well, yes, we knew that.
Oh, well, thank you. We followed that to a T. Okay.
Are there any comments anything that you
Yes.
guys would like to have included that may not have seen this prior name?
Tony asked about the headlight. We've toyed with that. I mean, yeah, I think we looked at it. We can, yeah, definitely.
So we want to look at adding the headlight back.
Yeah. I just think the train symbolizes that it separates our town, our main street, from our central. That's kind of more of our downtown location. Just trying to add in some of that history.
Does anybody have anything else that you'd like to offer up that maybe we didn't think about?
Or something that we didn't, some name of something that we missed. Okay.
I think this is going to hit a lot of different points for folks around town. It's going to really brighten up that area of town. I think it will add beautification that we've had a lot of our store owners ask for over the past while. We're starting to get traction on a number of ideas that originally started with you as the mayor and the board. Thank you for the opportunity to help make that happen. In addition to our annual budget, we have and will be receiving American Recovery Plan money. We need to start discussing how to spend that money. Please find attached an overview of how that funding can be used. I will put together a manager's recommendation for our next meeting. Please take a look at the attachment and let me know of any projects you would like included. Together, those ideas will give us a place to start discussions. And I will also, certainly we can do that in a separate meeting if you would like, but we do need to start thinking about those ARP funds and how you want to use them. There is as I mentioned, there is an attachment that gives you guidelines on what can be used for ARP. And I have some ideas, but certainly want to include yours in there as well. So if you want to stop by and let me know, give me a call or email me with anything you would like to be considered. I'll compile those and present them next month, and then we can decide whether you want to talk about them then or schedule a time to meet on them.
Yeah, and maybe talk about, I don't know, but we had kind of talked today maybe about a work session.
We could do a work session.
Do an open work session similar to what we would have done with the budget. It's a lot of money.
it is a lot of money. There's good news in that we have received half of it. The other half we will receive next year, and we have until 2024 to have an official plan for that, and it has to be all spent by the end of 2026. So we have some time, and it certainly is a lot of money, and we want to make sure that we put the proper thought into how we can reach the most citizens and make the most of that money.
Does it come the same time next year? Like, is it?
I have a date. I can't
Okay.
remember offhand when that is.
Okay,
to be
that's
honest
fine.
with
I
you.
didn't know if it
Yeah.
comes in January or.
Is the first half that we've already received included in these financials?
Yes. No, it's not. It's included in your final page that shows the totals, but it's not included in here because we will eventually have a separate project. We'll have a capital project for that money. So it's not included in your general fund. It's not included in these numbers here because we still have to put together a capital project ordinance for
Right.
it. But it is included in the numbers that show what our total balances are for our checking accounts.
Okay, and what was that amount?
It's right over $500,000
Okay.
because our total is, I think, just north of $1 million. I think it's $1,050,000, something like that.
Okay. Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Consider board comments, Mr. Stewart,
No comment.
Mr. Overcash,
Nothing. I got nothing.
Ms. Sales.
Yes, I am very disappointed with this board about the passive part. Just because your worker bees or a family member wasn't chosen, I was looking forward to working with these people. They might have totally different ideas that we should give people ideas or give them a chance to work with us.
Mr. Coyer.
I hope that this money we're getting could be used on streets. I think that'd be the most notable thing citizens could notice, is streets being paved.
Okay.
We got enough vehicles. I don't think we needed more vehicles.
Okay. Are you finished?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. At this time, I don't have any comments. Thank you so much for viewing. We will go into closed session. We will come back out and turn on the live feed. We may not speak for the first 30 to 45 seconds. Then we will end the meeting, but it will come back on. Right now, this one will end, and then there will be one that restarts. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Mayor and Board, I move we go into closed session
Second.
under North Carolina 143, 318, 11, 4, 6.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so you're going to turn it off?